So we're at 10:01. We're going to go ahead and jump in and get started. Hopefully there's some more people that come in, but the number has slowed down coming in. So as you can see in the top right, please share your name, your institution, and your email in the chat. That's so we know who's here and we can make sure we've got you connected to the right place, but we also helps us make sure we have the correct email. So if we need to reach out to somebody, we know I just saw Elizabeth Farrar pop into the chat that we have her email correct, that we're not missing an R in a name, or we don't have the initials for her college wrong, or whatever. So really we're just trying to double check all of our details as well. So today is an IBT professional development opportunity. And this is a little bit of a different setup. We have the FY25 people that are wrapping up their grant and the FY26 people who are just getting started on their grant. And so we've got a mixed kind of group here today. But we want to talk about some lessons learned, reflections, takeaways from the experienced. And so then the new people that are coming in, but we also know some of the new people are returning people, or maybe they weren't funded last year, but they've been funded previously. So we know we've got, and some of these people are brand new and have never had an IBT grant in their life. So we know we have the whole spectrum of people potentially here today. And so we just kind of want to share information and share ideas and get, help some people wrap up and help some people get off on the right foot and others continue down a different path for a different grant, because remember 25 and 26 are two different grants. They're not the same thing. Okay, I'll get off of that soapbox. Today you are hearing from both myself, Angela Gerberding with ICCB, the Director for Work-Based Learning, and Emma Godwin. Emma, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Emma Godwin, and I'm the Assistant Director for Workforce Education, and happy to be here with you all today.
And you will hear from both of us in regards to the IBT grant. So, Emma's running the slides. So, next slide, please. So why are we here today? What is our goal? What are we hoping to accomplish? As I said, we're going to reflect on the life of the IBT grant over the past, we're not at 15 months yet. We're at about 13 and a half months. Capture some key lessons and insights, share practices that worked and maybe some that didn't, so we can help each other, learn from each other, apply learning for future work, and then future meeting topics we'll get into a little bit. So the other piece of this is, while we are speaking about directly the IBT grant, some of these lessons learned and insights and best practices and future work could be something that you apply to a different grant, whether it's an adult ed grant or it's a Perkins grant or it's a Dollar General grant or it's some other community grant. We're trying to capture ideas and help each other become better, either grant writers or program developers and implementers. That's the word that I'm struggling to come up with this morning. All right, next slide. So grant overview. Again, some of this is going to be old, a repeat. Some of you are going to be new. Our target population for this particular grant is 16 years of age and older. We do not have a top end level. We don't top out at 65 or 70 or 80 or 90. If students are still enrolled and still engaged and still participating at whatever age, you can enroll them and count them as part of your grant. And I often refer to students, individuals as students, because I've been in the education field for 20, 25 years. And so they're students in my head. I know some of you may refer to them as clients, people being served, whatever you refer to them as. Please know that when I'm talking about students, those are who I'm talking about. I'm not necessarily talking about only students in education systems. With the 16 years of age or older, those are adults that are not enrolled in high school. So they may have limited academic or basic skills. They may be unemployed or underemployed, and they're looking to either enter or continue with some credit-bearing coursework or training to get a better job, a new job in a higher skill, higher wage, in-demand occupation. If you are serving 16 and 17-year-olds and they are enrolled in a public education system, public school, this can only be done if the activity you are doing is preparing them to enter post-secondary education and training following graduation. So these activities should not be math bridge classes. I mean, this has got to be how are they getting them? How are you getting them prepared to go on into college and then following graduation? The goal is there's got to be a graduation and then the next step. So, next question. Next, thank you for reading my mind. Grant objectives. As most of you know, in the IBT grant, there's 4 objectives. Objective number 1 is adult education bridge and integrated education and training programming. So you're either creating or you're expanding a bridge program, maybe an ICAPS program. And so that's where those fall. Objective 2, seamless transitions for college and career pathways. So again, you're creating new or greatly, that is the same wording, only larger. So, I can tell you that the seamless transitions for college and career pathways really is maybe you're dealing with curriculum development, could be dealing with dual credit, could be working with apprenticeships, different parts and pieces that way. So objective 3 is wraparound support services. So these are exactly what they say, wraparound, they are support services for students, individuals, clients that you are serving. And that could include adult education. So they could be working on their language as an ESL student. They could be working on getting their high school diploma. They could be working on remedial coursework, occupational plan programs, credit, non-credit, all kinds of, and these wraparound services, again, could be academic advising, career pathway, tutoring, study skills, coaching, referrals to individual student supports, individual support services. So could be things like basic housing, transportation, childcare. All of those are those wraparound supports that sometimes our students just need a little bit of to get over the hump to succeed and just to get through what they need. And so that's what Objective 3 covers. Objective 4 is seamless transitions for students with disabilities. This is, again, students, you're working with individuals with disabilities, could be vocational, psychological counseling, transition, educational services, could be job placement. Any of those could be, again, from high school to college, as well as college to employment. So that's where we've got a small group, small but mighty group is in our Objective 4. So those are the objectives. Back over to you, Emma.
All right. So, those of you who are in FY25, and those of you who are in FY26, here are some timelines and milestones. So, over the course of the life of the grant, you all submitted quarterly reports, which include financial, programmatic. The programmatic are goals that are set by each of you individually, and the performance measures, the charts that you fill out, just to determine the growth that you've had over the course of the life of the grant. And then the last thing is success stories. So either you have already previously submitted these or you're going to submit these. These are just some highlights from the life of the grant that you all have been working on. All right, so we're going to get into some breakout sessions. There are 4 main questions that we want you guys to discuss and answer. When I go to the next slide, there will be 5 breakout groups with your names. In my opinion, the list is a little bit overwhelming, so don't worry. I'll leave it up there for a while, but to get started on the questions, you guys are going to have kind of a roundtable about the lessons learned, and maybe some things you're expecting to come down the pipe. So our first question is, what is one success from your grant work that you are most proud of? The second one is, what was the biggest challenge you faced and how did you address it? So what was the solution that came out of that? Next one is, what is one lesson learned that you would apply differently in a future grant? So maybe not necessarily the IBT grant, but any other grant that your organization or college has. What strategies or practices would you recommend to future grantees? So our FY25 folks, this is where you're imparting some wisdom to the FY26 folks. Where would you provide some extra support to them? So be prepared to come and report back 1 to 2 key takeaways from each group. Dalton, I think, is going to share a link to a Google spreadsheet, and that is where you will record. Each tab at the bottom has your objective. For objective 1, there will be 2 rooms. So you can find yourself on this next slide. This is the big giant list that I said might be a little bit overwhelming, but objective 1, room 1, we have a bunch of folks. Objective 1, room 2, we have some more. Then we have objective 1 group, objective 3 group, and objective 4 group. So in just a moment, the breakout rooms are going to open up, and you are going to join the room that corresponds with the objective number. If you are in objective room 1, you'll go to objective room 1, and so on and so forth. So we're going to take until about 10:40 to talk in our breakout rooms and discuss. And you all can take notes in the spreadsheet that Dalton shared. I would suggest having one person be a recorder or note taker, and then you can all come back and discuss. There are 3 extra questions on there if you get to them. Those have to do with professional development topics. So 3 more questions are: what are some topics you would like to see? What topics do you think should be included? And are there any topics that should be returned for new grantees? So are there any topics that you went through this year that you're like, oh yes, that would be super helpful to redo or revisit? So, and we'll talk about that a little bit further in the upcoming slides. But
So Emma, let me add, we had a
yeah,
conversation about what was the purpose of this Google Doc. And the purpose of it really is for you all to be able to record things, but also for us to be able to go back and look and see, because if each group brings us 1 or 2, but there's like 5 or 6 from a group, we want to be able to go in and look at those and see those. But know that we will also share the link in this doc back out following this meeting. We'll send the slides, we'll send the record, we'll send that information out. So you can also go back in and look and see what suggestions were made or what ideas or whatever. So we want this to be functional for you, but we also are going to take away from it as well of what were you able to share. So that's all.
okay, thank you. So you're going to record in column B where your answers are. So that way you still have the questions to refer back to. All right, so let's open up those breakout rooms. Thank you, thank you. And go ahead and join the breakout room that corresponds with your objective number. And if you have any questions, or if you're struggling to get in, or you're struggling to work the Google Sheet, just let one of us know and we can help you out. Feel free to go ahead and join those rooms when they open up.
Did they pop up for you all? Are you able to?
I am not seeing them.
I can see it
Oh,
from my end, but
Really? How did you do that?
well, I'm a co-host. I think that's why.
Ah.
let me try again. It
Oh,
just
there's a join a breakout room just popped up in the bottom of my screen.
beautiful. Okay.
There we go. Thank you, Brittany.
So from that, I clicked on it and then I can pick whichever one I want to join.
Correct.
Okay.
Whoa, there are a lot of Emma Godwins.
Yes. And if you are one of the extra Emmas, you are able to rename yourself. So that might be a little helpful when you go into the breakout rooms.
There anyone that can't find the join the room or is struggling with that part of it? Because we all know technology is great right up until it isn't. Michelle, you said you're struggling. Okay. I have a little icon on the bottom now that says join breakout room. Do you have one of those?
Well, and Michelle, if you let me know which room you need to go into, I can assign you from my end. Four. Okay.
We might need to move Michelle to a different room. It looks
Yeah,
like
I
she
moved
might
her
be the
over
only.
into, oh, she might be the only one.
Yeah.
Four.
No, sorry. I thought I saw somebody else, but then I changed my mind. It wasn't them.
Do we have uh, Ayana Clark, Jean Gaspari, and Tracy Massow? Are those ICCB people or
Tracy goes to Kaskaskia, so she should be moved to objective 2.
okay.
And I'm only looking at that because I'm looking in chat. Who else did you say?
Ayana Clark,
Oh,
Metro. So, objective 1, room 1.
okay. All right,
And
that is
I'm gonna go ahead and move Michelle to objective 3.
all right. I'm going to pause the recording.
Great.
All right. It looks like we're all back. And we're gonna see what all you talked about. I opened the Google link and I see that there's lots of information plugged in. So great. I will read diligently all of that later. But first, let's hear from you guys. So objective 1, room 1. I don't know who you're, hopefully you selected a speaker, or if not, hopefully someone will just volunteer. What are one or two takeaways that your group talked about, or what would you like to share with us? Emma, can you put the slide of that group up and then I will know who I should pick on?
I can do it.
Okay, there you go, Becky. Thanks.
You're welcome. All right. What is one success from your grant work that you are most proud of? IECC started 3 new ICAPS programs. Moraine Valley expanded their pharmacy technician program, Bridge and ICAPS. And ROE 33's goal is to have all of their high school equivalency graduates complete the Bridge to Careers through CIS 360.
Fabulous.
Do you want me to keep going?
Sure.
What was the biggest challenge you faced? Retention and recruitment. Some colleges, IECC has 4 campuses, so covering all of those campuses, informing all locations of all approved ICAPs, and this is not a challenge. This is a solution. But ROE 33 partners with our local community college to have 1 day a month to do everything like apply, take the placement test, take a tour, register for classes, and talk to financial aid.
Cool. All right.
One lesson we learned we would apply differently, scaling down the number of ICAPs instead of the goal being 25 ICAP students and not meeting all of their needs. We're going to scale that number down and have better supports. Also, the CASAS reading level 6 is needed for our English students. So ROE 33 is focused on the level 6 CASAS reading scores to make sure that those students are successful. And then also, if we receive the grant this year, but not next year, wanting to know how to expand and make our programs better. strategies or practices for future grantees, being realistic, applicable, and workable for your program. And we didn't actually get to the professional development topics. I just added a few things, few ideas. Like what examples is ICB looking for the IBT grants? And if you're a new grantee, maybe having them do more professional developments that are required or just having different ones.
Okay. Good. Thank you. All right. Objective 2. No. Objective 1, still room 2.
I am the reporter for room 2.
Thank you, George.
We had a couple people, just 3 in total in our group. Myself, Meredith Shivers from Southwestern Illinois College, who I think actually is objective 2, but she joined our group and it was a really good conversation. And then Paul Thomas from Trellis. Trellis successfully started a paraprofessional program at new ICAPS and really had success going through the different benchmarks in terms of exploration, bridge programming, and getting the ICAP started last fall. And then over at Southwestern Illinois College, there was real success in terms of reducing student barriers, transportation, and so forth to get them to class and to complete their clinicals. Challenges, echoing what Becky just said, I'd say recruitment stood out as the biggest identifier for challenges. Not only just recruiting people, but finding students at the right level. So we're just new at the Polish American Association, we're new into our IBT, ICAPS, but I expect this will be an issue, a challenge is that not necessarily finding people who are interested, but finding people who particularly whose English language skills are at the point that they need to be at to succeed, in the ICAPS portion, which is in English itself. In our case, it's over at DeVry University. So then the more, document side of things, high school credentials, transcripts, especially with foreign-born clients that, certain programs require evidence of graduation from a U.S. High school or an equivalent. And so, chasing down a transcript from Poland or Ukraine or Venezuela or wherever you may be talking about can be a big logistical challenge. For lessons learned, Paul at Trellis talked about realistic timeframes for your deliverables, and another way of saying it's like balancing the credentials that you want to deliver with the goals and the purposes of the rest of the program, and not sort of sinking too much time into one thing and losing sight of the overall the big picture of what the purpose of the program is. He used WorkNet as an example there, also a Google credential. And then Meredith identified the need for getting good support staff, particularly for the ICAPS support staff, side of things, and to not take that for granted. You have the training side of the ICAPS with your partner or, whatever that is, but to really make sure you're giving good attention to the need for good support staff. Best practices, really taking these early days, the first few months, the first quarter in that exploration stage to make sure that the programming that you're creating will really land student jobs, and taking that side of it rather than just having this idea and running with it, and making sure that you're in touch with the fact that these programs are going to, the whole point is obviously to land students employment or as much as possible. Field trips, whether real or virtual, in the CNA program over at Southwestern Illinois was identified, as a really way to help students to retain them and to keep them engaged in the program. And finally, more topics you'd like to see, really, because we're all concerned with this, but what jobs are in demand? And, trying to sort of identify what the hot industry sector is right now. And it could be a bit reactive, right? Building programming around that. But to get guest speakers about that, things like that. We all have our resources for, the different industry sectors and what's the changing landscape of the job market. But, I think, we're all trying to, I think the way Paul put it is, hit the gold mine, right? Strike gold with the perfect ICAPS that's going to vastly exceed what you expected and get a lot of people jobs. But it can be, you may think it's this in IT, but in fact it's something else. And, and so it's one of those things of, any, any sort of guidance or, I guess that IACCP could do that, is helping us as grantees make sure that we're getting all the information we need on the, the rapidly changing job market and where jobs are actually being created now and where we can get these people into jobs, which at the end of the day is the, is the overriding point. So that's it for us.
Cool. Thank you very much, George. And Paul and Meredith for your contributions as well. All right. Objective 2. Who wants to?
I was the note taker. This is Elizabeth Utswick. And I took the notes because we did not participate in the IBT cycle this past year, so I didn't have the past year to speak to. So I just got to listen and take notes. Some of the successes that were mentioned: Blackhawk College had great success with their healthcare pathways, and now they're focusing on a different pathway, the welding pathway for 2026 cycle. And she noted that they gave out over 60,000 in student support scholarships, and that their completion rate is really, really positive. That's amazing to me. That's a huge amount going to students. Kaskaskia had a new program, the Precision Agriculture Program, and it started with 9 students, and they were able to support all the way through with not just the tuition fees, but also gas cards. And also just really a really unique program, it sounded like to me. I was excited to hear about that. And Joliet very successfully transitioned students to post-secondary education, said they had even just some great, a great video that they shared with you all and that they shared at graduation as well, which I think is probably very impactful. For challenges, they mentioned kind of some just internal challenges in colleges that would have nothing to do with the IBT grant or with ICCB, but we all have different HR departments and finance departments and community issues, and so a lot of the things that were mentioned were just internal, nothing that could be addressed through the grant per se. But Kaskaskia did mention the timing of the funding in relation to being able to hire that staff, and staff is just hiring is an ongoing challenge, and finding good staff, timing that. It seems like a lot of the institutions have a very long process in hiring. And so it is nice to have the 15 months because that gives a little bit more time to get that staff hired and up to speed. Lessons learned, adjusting the wording to reduce internal confusion. Again, not anything to do with the IBT grant, but just the way that they worded the proposal at Blackhawk. If they had changed the wording a little, it would have reduced some of the internal organizational confusion that kind of slowed down their project for a little bit. And also just adjusting that internal timeline, like Kaskaskia mentioned. Again, that staffing piece, it takes, we want to find the great person right away. Sometimes it takes more than a minute. So just adjusting that internal timeline. Practices, strategies for the future. Maybe a short synopsis. I know there's lots of ideas in the NOFO, but just a short synopsis of each organization's project shared with future applicants to really show that great range of projects. And then another thing was just to make sure that you're launching a newer initiative, not submitting a proposal that's really built on an older initiative, but being new and innovative. Those were the things that were mentioned.
Wow. You guys covered a lot of ground. Good. Those are great. And I'm making some notes and then I'm thinking to myself, but it's all right here in the document and I'm going to have it. So that shows you my age that I'm like, I got to write it down on paper, but I know it's right here. I'm looking at it on the screen. All right. Good. And that reminded me that for our FY26 grantees that are on the call, the majority of you should have gotten your grant agreements last week in the email. If you did not, reach out to Emma or I. We can confirm if we sent them and to who, so you know who to check with to make sure they got them and then they're in the process of getting them signed and returned. Sorry, just a side note that popped up into my head. All right, objective 3. Who wants to talk about that one?
I think I can take it. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Kopinski from Poder, Rini from Township High School District, and also Michelle from Governor's State were in our group today. And we talked about a couple of like overall successes and challenges, and then a couple individual ones between the three of our programs. Not an exhaustive list, but some good discussion nonetheless. So I think well, I should say successes from our grant. Overall, communication and connectivity stood out. The connectivity between like staff, like instructors, support specialists, and administrators that this grant allowed to kind of build capacity has been one of the really good things that in multiple organizations and programs that we talked about. And then communication being again between the staff, but to the students and prospective students themselves, really using it to get your students familiar with the teacher and using them as a resource. Rini really stressed that the Suzanne, their teacher, is so well connected to the students throughout the program at this point that they have the support they need. So building that in was a big part of it for multiple programs there. And then using success stories in your kind of communication to students, but also like within your program once again to see how things barriers. Objective 3 is kind of like the wraparound supports. Even if you have money in other places, the wraparound supports was a big part of like how we had all structured our stuff. And at Poder, actually, I remember our member advisors, we call them, had shared like a student journey at one point where the student came in with one issue to kind of like address, and then we found our team, I'm not as familiar with this part of it, but our team found at least like 3 or 4 other kind of issues that were like predated, like the one thing they had to solve, including like mental health support and kind of like some studies, a few smaller things like childcare, like stuff that comes up in wraparound support all the time, right? So that was a really cool way to see like the journey that someone can take well before you actually get to the thing they think they need addressed, right? So that was a big kind of success in how we've operated the kind of overall objective there. Another specific one, Rini mentioned that the direct link with employer partners, one specific one who demonstrated a lot of buy-in with the program completers and would, guarantee interviews, and so establishing that connection was huge. The challenge is kind of like related to the success in a lot of ways, I think, that we came up with. The long-term commitment to programming at all of our institutions is important, right? And that's always almost like an evergreen question for recruitment and intake. And what are you telling your prospective students, and how are you kind of motivating them, but also giving them like a view of like what the success will look like when you're recruiting. And our enrollment and retention at all of our programs have really been improved by that communication that we talked about as a success in the first question. The communication and that connectivity between staff has really paid off. So again, the challenge is related to the success in that sense. Lessons learned. Michelle made a really good point about flexibility being useful for this grant. We talk about at an individual level too. When your learners are coming in, they're going to have things that they think, going back to the example I shared, that they think are the thing they need to take care of. But maybe you actually need to discover other parts that you should address first with their barriers that they need to overcome. But then also just as a grant approach overall, like moving staffing around or shifting responsibilities, and even how you budget. We all were really thankful to Angela and Emma's work on this program and being open and communicative about what budgeting and kind of like how we could like solve problems with this grant. So that was really the flexibility from the beginning was something that we all feel strongly about, programming wise and individual wise. And then another lesson in future grants that we'd really think about tracking outcomes from the beginning in a very comprehensive sense, and but not being like so married to them, right? But having having a picture of what success looks like for your students, but also your program overall. Even if you're going to change that, if you're going to learn from it as you go, that's okay. But having a good idea of how you can like iterate that once you get to a little bit more time with the learners and what the program looks like is super useful as well. So strategies and practices also kind of go back to that same lesson learned. Have a good idea of your outcomes at the beginning so you can learn from them and adjust. And then another one that we thought was super useful is over recruit, of course, for your programs. How you structure your intake will inform that, but you're always going to have individuals that you can't totally help overcome like their problems or their barriers at the moment, right here and now. And you can always get them to come back later, but of course, over recruiting helps solve some of that and helps you learn as you enroll more people in your program. So that's group 3.
Thanks, Brian. If any of you are following along on the chart and you're thinking, oh no, we have 1 minute with objective 4, the good news is objective 4 only had 1 person, so they didn't fill out any answers. So objective 4 is done. Check that off the list. See, quick, easy things. Couple of things to come. Topics. If you have heard something or you saw something that you are interested in, that you want to hear more about, or you think you are an expert on, you'd like to share something about, please reach out to MRI. We are working on building topics for this coming FY26 year. And so if you've got a topic like I said, you want to hear or you feel like you could present on, please shoot us an email with those requests. The next meetings next month, a little bit. So this month we were combined, next month we're separate. For FY25, we're going to do a final operational meeting on the 10th of March at 10 a.m. And we're going to be talking about closeout steps, procedures. What does that look like? What does that mean? I would suggest you bring your programmatic people and potentially your fiscal people, because there will be some of those questions possibly involved, discussions talked about for that. For our FY26 grantees, that professional development meeting will be in March on the 17th at 10 a.m. And we're going to be talking about how to input expenses into UNA, how to do quarterly reporting, and some grant writing tips. So I think that covers everything that we've got. I'm right at 11 o'clock. If you have questions, I think Emma and I can stick around for just a minute. But otherwise, thank you very much for everything that you do. Thank you for sharing ideas today. We will share all of this information back out, like I said, so you all can see the ideas from everyone else as well. So
thank you, everybody.
On that note, go have a great Tuesday.
Thank you, everyone.
Peter, we got you.